Thank you, everybody. It's a pleasure to be here. Always fun to be at the Baseball Hall of Fame. So, like we said, we're going to be talking a little bit about Bud Fowler and his time in Massachusetts. So, I originally put this proposal together for the 19th Century Baseball Conference, and I had all these lofty and ambitions about trying to find all of these things about Bud Fowler, but there's so many things that I don't know if we'll ever find out about Bud Fowler. I really wanted to focus on his time in Massachusetts, 1877, 1878, 1879, when he was with the Chelsea Baseball Club, which then became the Franklin Baseball Club, the Lynn Live Oaks. I wanted to find out, why did he come to Chelsea? Out of all the places, why Chelsea? There are other accounts of him playing in a variety of different places in Worcester, and did the archives hold any of these things? And unfortunately, a lot of my hopes and ambitions in doing some of this work really still didn't find a lot of the answers. But hopefully that this presentation will show you some in maybe a little bit more in depth his time in Massachusetts. So like I said, we're going to be talking about 1877, 78, and 79. If you don't know, this is Massachusetts, and you can see most of it's on the eastern part of Massachusetts. Essex County, Middlesex County is where he played, Chelsea, Lynn, and Malton. His name. I wanted to figure out maybe what is up with the name. Why did he pick Bud Fowler? And so I went through some of the different directories. I went through some census records to see if I could find anybody with the name Fowler from Chelsea. And I did find a couple of things that are kind of interesting. In 1878, Chelsea directory, there was a Mrs. Samuel Fowler, a widow living at 9 Blossom Street, with a S. William Fowler, who was a student. Doing a little bit of kind of background on this, and this is something I can't confirm, but it's kind of interesting. If you look at Mrs. Samuel Fowler, she was a widow. I looked at Samuel's will, and it said in the will that he would support his child. So if he was in school, so maybe he took the name Bud, maybe Jackson took the name Bud Fowler for that. I don't know, but just continuing on, led to more questions, I think. Did Jackson come to Chelsea and board with Elizabeth Fowler and adopt her name? Did he befriend William, who would have been around the same age, and take his name when he was playing? I don't know, but these are questions that I think, again, when we're trying to uncover the past of Fowler, these are questions and things that we can explore in more depth. So again, still more of a mystery. What brought him to Chelsea? In several places, he's recorded as a student, had these great ambitions of maybe tracking down different records in Chelsea. I contacted people at the library. I contacted people in the school system. Unfortunately, there was a big fire in Chelsea, and a lot of these records are lost. So we will never know if he was a student, if he wasn't a student. But he came to Chelsea supposedly to be a student, which I find kind of odd. Out of all the places in Massachusetts to pick, Chelsea didn't have a overly large Black population. So again, it leads to more questions. Was it family? Was it something else that brought him to Chelsea? Okay. What we do know, though, is that in 1877, he played for the Franklin Baseball Club. And you can see here, 1877, they were formed as a junior club. They'll play 1877 as a junior club, and then they will transition into the Franklin Club in 1878 and play as a adult team. 1877 was a success for Fowler and the Franklin Club of Chelsea. A Boston Post article dated March 19th, 1877 mentions the formation of the Franklin Club, like you saw in the last slide. The article goes on to mention that the club would be entering the Junior Championships of Massachusetts. The Franklin Club hosted a very successful 1877 season, winning 14 games and only losing 3. Wins include those against the Trentons of East Boston, Resolutes of Chelsea, Emmets of Lynn, Everetts of Dorchester, Alerts of Malden, the West Roxbury 9, the Emmets of South Boston, the General Worths of Stoneham, our Boys of Boston, and the Lynns of Lynn. Okay, very, very creative names. The newspaper accounts from the Chelsea Telegraph and Pioneer, Boston Journal, and New York Clipper point to Fowler being steady on the mound and chipping in on the offensive side, hitting in the top half of the lineup in just about all of the games that have box scores. The highlight of the season in 1877 was a 17 tournament held in Lynn at the West Lynn grounds in late September. It's unclear who won the tournament, but the Franklins did find success and kind of prepped them for the following year when they would jump into the adult realm. So the Chelsea Club of 1878, they played a couple of very interesting games early in the season, which I think is what helped propel Fowler into becoming a professional with, or filling in as a professional with the Lynn Live Oaks. And those 2 games, one is against the Boston Redcaps, and the other one was a game against the Lynn Live Oaks early in the season. On April 13th, he squared off against the Lynn Live Oaks. The game was littered with errors for the Chelseas and the lopsided score of 16-1 in favor of the Live Oaks. But Fowler bounced back against the Redcaps, and his lineup featuring George Wright, Andy Leonard, and Jim O'Rourke, beating them April 24th, 2-1. That's pretty, you're facing a professional baseball club and beating them 2-1 is going to open some eyes. In the April 25th Boston Globe, it alluded to the lack of enthusiasm on the part of the Boston professionals, but holding that lineup to a single run is a pretty impressive feat regardless. The Chelsea Telegraph said, "We account for the Boston's defeat, and they're believing they could easily bat Fowler and win the game in 1 or 2 innings, and did not settle down to work until they found it was too late because he was pitching too well." Okay. But they also praise Fowler. Fowler is our regular pitcher, pitched with wonderful effect, while the Bostons work hard to hit him for safe hits, with getting but 3 safe ones. Fowler continued to impress on the mound against the General Worths on May 4th, winning 4-2, and the New York Clipper states, "The pitching of Fowler was, as usual, very effective, the Worths making the same hits as the Bostons did April 25th. On May 15th, Chelsea took on the Worcesters, losing 3-0 on a windy and cold day. But again, Fowler seemed to hold his own against pretty good competition. And him playing against the Redcaps, him playing against the Live Oaks, and him playing against Worcester probably influenced his kind of jumping around to play for some of those teams later in the season. Fowler got his big break, though. Okay, there's the Lynn, Massachusetts. So if you don't know any, that's a picture of Lynn, Massachusetts from the 1870s. Very congested, big city, okay, right on the water. Like I said, he was a familiar face. He had pitched against the Live Oaks several times. He got his big break on May 16th, 1878, when the International Association Lynn Live Oaks normal pitcher Gorman Price injured his arm, according to the Lynn Daily Evening Item. While the Live Oaks negotiated with good pitchers, Fowler of the Chelseas would fill in. In his first game against the eventual league champions, the London Tecumsehs, Fowler had so large a part in winning the Tecumseh game. He's a very fine pitcher, and it's a pity he cannot be permanently secured. He is a scholar. This is where they point to him being a scholar in the Chelsea High School, and his parents do not wish him to play ball on a salary, but he has expressed willingness to play with the Oaks whenever they need him. Why didn't they pursue him in more depth? Was it a racial thing? Was it something else? We don't know. The Lynn Daily item, May 17th, 1878, refers to Fowler as the colored Chelsea pitcher, but does not reference race in the edition on the 18th. The Boston Globe on May 18th also refers to Fowler's skin color, but in subsequent game accounts from 1878 that Fowler participated, the color of his skin is not referenced. Fowler, so that's some of the different games that he played in. He played in a variety in like 4 different games. You can see there he pitched against the Worcesters. The game was uninteresting. That was the big quote from it. About 500 persons witnessed the game. The Live Oaks lost again, 9-4 on May 25th. They scored on 2 errors by Fowler. I assume they were wild pitches, giving up 2 bases when they were sent home by safe hits. Okay, game 4, now he's not really finding a lot of success. Fowler's pitching was very wild and made his errors, and Sullivan's catcher, numerous errors. They say sore hands caused poor play on his part, but were there other reasons behind that? You have to read like between the lines. And so Bud Fowler, kind of after he did not find success, and you saw in that other slide that he wasn't pitching as well, he returned back to Chelsea. But I do want to talk a little bit about Fowler and kind of the remembering him today. In Lynn, there's Fraser Field, which is a really old field. I believe there was a New England League team that played there in like the 40s. They still play collegiate wood bat there in like the summer. There is a plaque and I guess memorial for Fowler and what he did in Lynn. So after leaving Lynn, he kind of goes back to Chelsea, but then he gets another opportunity to go pitch in Worcester. Okay, and again he pitched in Worcester for a game because they couldn't get they could find anybody to pitch. So he filled in. At this time, the Live Oaks were also kind of dissolving, and they'll eventually move to Worcester, but that's not really that important part of the story. So after he played Worcester, kind of disappears. You know, there's no other references to him playing, which is kind of sad. You know, like all of a sudden he's playing and then he's gone. There's no references to him playing for a reconfigured team in Lynn, the Bay State Club. There's no references to him playing in Worcester again. So he just stopped playing for the rest of 1878 that we have documented. So then he moves on to the Eastern Massachusetts Baseball Association in 1879. He plays for a team in Malden. And you can see here, he is one of their pitchers, he's their pitcher. But the name is kind of interesting. Now he's adopted the name Andrew Fowler. Is that an accident on the newspaper part? Is that him changing his name again? I think it's again another one of those examples of we will never know the whole story of Fowler. Thought that was kind of cool. There was a reference in one of the newspapers that I found from Malden, kind of looking at the uniform that he would have worn. So it'd be kind of cool to. I mean, I asked Craig Brown, who does Threads of Our Game, to put that together. So just put Bud Fowler's face on that, and that would be the uniform he would have worn in 1879. Definitely ups and downs for his season. He pitched well at times, he pitched really bad at times, and you can see a couple of examples here of the success and then really some of the failures that he had pitching. They went on the road. Malden went down to Jersey City, and this is kind of where from my research, I'd like to go in more depth. I've really, in looking at Fowler, I've looked at Chelsea and I've looked at Lynn. Haven't looked as much into this. I think this is some examples of where you might see some racism against Fowler. When he's in New Jersey, they start complaining and calling him for illegal pitches. And I feel like that kind of started this snowball effect of kind of pushing him out and kind of putting him on the path of jumping around like he did for the next, I don't know, 20 years or so. You can see here that the pitching, he was supposed to pitch below his waist, and he was supposedly throwing illegal pitches. Okay. This is another example of just them talking about the illegal pitches that Fowler was throwing. Pretty big game against the General Worth Club from Stoneham. They had a big rivalry, and again, they started to complain about Fowler in his illegal pitches. Then he kind of disappears. He's back playing on the field a couple weeks later. Again, not finding a ton of success, and I think again, then he starts kind of transitioning to being a traveling nomad. But one of the things that I think is really important is just promoting the legacy of Fowler, and I think it's important that we kind of recognize that he was a traveling nomad, and we kind of fill in that story. And I brought my son here a couple of years ago when he got inducted. I've set up displays in Lynn talking about Bud Fowler just to spread the word about what he did in Massachusetts. Let me talk about this bat for a second that's sitting here. So I play vintage baseball. I've been playing 19th century baseball for 20 plus years. And one of the teams that we play by or play as is the Lynn Live Oaks. And one of the reasons we chose that team was because of Fowler and a variety of other things. But we decided to do a Bud Fowler Cup. And we have like a little this is a trophy bat that we put together for Bud Fowler and Bud Fowler Day. But Walter Bat Company created this, and you can see the image here of Fowler. It's the Bud Fowler Pioneer Bat. And the story behind the bat, though, kind of just to draw the through line between then and today, is I was up in an antique store up in Maine, and I found a Jackie Robinson model bat. And I was like, oh, this kind of it's kind of a cool bat. It's got a thick handle, kind of maybe what a 19th century bat would look like. So I brought it to Walter Bat Company, had them recreate this bat. So it's kind of the pioneer bat connecting Jackie Robinson to Bud Fowler. So, okay. Questions later.